Добрый день.
Good morning, colleagues. Thank you very much for this opportunity to introduce my report and quite a representative composition of our meeting. So that's why I feel very responsible for what we are going to say and to really perform. Please show the first slide. So it's information mostly for our partners from abroad. It's the modern energy saving history in Russia just started 5 years ago. Unlike many decades of the Western European and countries and Japan and the USA, when very active attention was paid during the oil crisis back in the 70s. Our new stage was to adopt a law on energy saving. And despite the fact that a lot of time has passed and we realized that the law is not perfect and there are some issues and questions that were not yet performed. So at the moment of adoption, the law was absolutely new for our economy and introduced new mechanisms and also allowed us to be even euphoric about the expectations and achievements. Nevertheless, during the recent 5 years, we have formed the main informative base, toolkits, mechanisms, pilots, cases, and actually we have confirmed with our practice that all those instruments that we expected to provide extra budget financing, energy saving, servicing contracts, support instruments of energy saving, so they are well operating.
Together with that, due to various reasons, the recent year, 2015, witnessed significant minimization of budget efforts in financing energy savings on the federal level and regional level. Previous 5 years, the main driver for energy efficiency was the state, and the main resources that were invested into energy savings were the money and the funds from the regional budgets. But now the focus shifted due to off-budget sources. And concluding our experience of the previous 5 years, we can say that the regulatory base is completed. We've accumulated the experience in this area, and in my perspective, the main thing is that the most valuable is the negative experience. We had a lot of issues, various risks and projects that failed, but anyway, any of the problems did not become a barrier for further development, but it was a new stage in our development. And the main result, the result of the 5 years past, we can say that energy saving is now a business, and there are new players in the market. They have learned how to earn money on energy savings. So, in fact, it all turned into an economic movement with the interested parties, with stakeholders. And when there are stakeholders, it means that the process will survive. It dies when no one cares, but not this time. And again, the barriers of the zero step are now identified. We have some barriers, and sometimes they say that banks do not fund energy saving, and that the projects are difficult to invest. But banks are now quite serious about commercialization and funding such projects today. And the main point we have to point out is that in today's current economic situation, today's global economic picture, there are no other options than to increase energy efficiency of our economy. Next slide, please. Just in a nutshell, talking about the main aspects of the state policy in energy saving, energy efficiency, we can highlight 7 blocks: regulatory base, and then executors of the projects in energy saving, and also high-quality clients, those who are beneficiaries of the project's information and methodology support. Unfortunately, up until now, the level of illiteracy is quite high, illiteracy in energy saving. And of course, financial instruments and infrastructure, all those mechanisms and instruments, insurance, leasing, factoring, and lending of projects. I understand that colleagues from Western countries might have already introduced all of them long ago, but for us it's a new stage and we're just considering it, approaching it. And also measurements without which you cannot implement and execute your projects in energy efficiency. And the last block, quite actively developed today, requirements towards buildings, equipment, and technologies. Next slide, please. I'd like to touch upon those points that are in the pipeline today across all the blocks. Regulatory base. In general, the regulatory framework has already been formulated, but today we are going through a couple of legislative initiatives that will complete the perimeter of regulation in energy efficiency. And next year, I hope that we will devote our agenda not to improvement our regulatory base, but the law enforcement. As we say in Russia, the laws are strict, but they are not mandatory to execute. But through improvement of the law enforcement practice, we will achieve a level where energy efficiency is not just a motto, but a mandatory thing to execute and things to achieve in the nearest future. We have to introduce amendments into a number of documents of the federal law and the documents under the government. First of all, we will do the reassessment of various refinancing project initiatives. Initiators will have an opportunity to resell such instruments. For us, it's a new instrument, and we hope that it'll stimulate inflow of capital into this area. And a list of documents which might seem not very relevant for our foreign colleagues, but for Russia, they are very important today. The opportunity to consider savings in generation and shifting from one type of fuel to another, savings when you do not achieve the indicators, and also another block of changes in the utilities and housing legislation, procedures of energy service contracts in the residential sector for blocks of flats. We have a very significant issue today when the state is subsidizing or offers benefits to a large number of people. And if the project is executed under the energy service contract, this group of people are just outside of the economic logic, and the motivation is breached, motivation of the citizens to execute such projects. So the more efficient the block of flats is, the less benefits is given to the citizens, to the residents. So such things should be eliminated. And those who represent our country, I'm just trying to explain things to our foreign colleagues. Our Russian colleagues might know all of that. I'm sorry for delving into too many details now. Another important change that we are approaching the changes, amendments into the basic law on energy efficiency in two areas. First, transfer from the system of mandatory energy audits. For the recent 5 years in our country, we had a requirement on mandatory energy audits with the participation of the state, large factories, large companies and all. But now we are getting away from this practice, and now we have the regime of mandatory declarations. And also we prolong the practice for setting requirements for budget organizations for the next 5 years, when every budget organization should 2% should decrease their consumption by 2% in natural figures. And again, if we also implement instrument and controlling instruments and monitoring instruments, we will also become more efficient in consumption of energy resources. Another important block that we've launched. Recent years, we were discussing quite actively the requirements of energy efficiency towards buildings, equipment, and technologies, and that's the steps that other countries have already made long ago. But now we're just formulating the system for mandatory requirements towards equipment and buildings. We need marking energy efficiency requirements and also special metering devices. The dynamics should be set and the requirements should become more strict. And just 2 weeks ago, the government of the Russian Federation prepared the instruction to achieve by March next year, to do a roadmap, an action plan, to prepare it in order to lift the barriers, information, regulatory, technical barriers on all stages of the life cycle of buildings, on the stage of designing, commissioning, and capital maintenance and the refurbishment. By March, we will have to formalize a set of measures in this area that will offer the logic of further movement, further steps, and main requirements, and that will bring us to a conclusion in this area, in the part of the buildings. A slide back, please. Colleagues, block number 2 and 3, I mentioned main blocks of the state policy, executors and clients. Why am I highlighting them separately? Obviously, how quality the project on energy efficiency is done will depend not only the economic benefits of the participants of the process, but I do not know whether it is relevant for you. For us, it is very relevant today. The question of reputation. The projects on energy savings, in many cases, are perceived by citizens with a pinch of salt. They're quite skeptical about it, and we don't yet have the mental practice that if we save a ruble, we earn a ruble. So the logic is that you can earn a ruble only selling or buying something, and the savings and the resources freed through savings isn't yet perceived quite well. So it is very important to cooperate with the clients, and it'll enable us to formulate institutional relations when there are professional executors, actors who, through their reputation and their accumulated experience, they can demonstrate that yes, those projects can be successful and the impact is huge and it can be proved, and the results are quite obvious for all the participants. In this area, we've already got some experience. We try and stimulate all energy service companies. We want them to join their efforts and create a system where the professional community motivate each other for achieving a high level of qualification. And the clients, of course. It's a very important issue. As far as I know, the international experience, it's an issue, a challenge for all countries, the problem of a competent client. Through execution of various projects, sometimes the needs of clients change dramatically. Clients, state companies and official bodies and commercial companies, attracting executors into the projects on energy efficiency. Sometimes clients expect something different, not what they really stipulate and articulate. And we, as executive branch of power, we try to raise awareness among clients, and we work with various regions and try and formulate the system of total camera analysis of what is happening outside, and we propose projects. We also launched. We also invested much efforts in capital maintenance of large blocks of flats, and we try to combine them with projects on energy efficiency. But if you do not know about our system of capital maintenance, our state postulates that all citizens have to create through funds, special funds. They have to pool financial resources for the buildings that become obsolete. They have to be refurbished. And energy service scheme applied in this area enables people to decrease costs on such measures and also increase operational efficiency of the buildings. And another huge chunk of work is done across federal executive bodies, budget bodies, the Ministry of Healthcare, the Ministry of Education. During other round tables, we will get into deeper into details. If you're interested, please, you're welcome. Information support and financial instruments. We cannot say that those are the main important blocks, since each of the 7 blocks highlighted are very important and valuable. But my expert opinion, not as an official but an expert, I think that if we do not inform, raise awareness, constantly explain to all stakeholders around what energy efficiency, what energy savings is, then all other steps are just nothing, because no one understands what it really is. So through public organizations, for instance, energy service organizations and federal ministries, analytical center under the government of the Russian Federation, through all these bodies, we set up activities to publish and prepare special bulletins on energy saving. What we achieved, we realized that the majority of our challenges are related not with the not ideal laws, but unregulated situation, not very well explained situation. And together with colleagues from federal ministries, we've launched a sustainable flow where we formulate, for instance, a challenge for everyone. Sorry, I can talk for a long period of time about that. So federal executive bodies prepare instructions that are not laws, but actually help to regulate the situation better. About financial instruments and infrastructure, I already mentioned that factoring mechanisms, we will introduce them in the nearest couple of months. And now we're working on opportunities to energy efficiency steps to combine them with leasing and other state guarantees. And just a couple of words about measuring. It's a basic element, obviously, and now we're developing it as a state initiative. Two things here. Federal law on organization of intellectual measurements on electric power, and as an initiative, our public organizations develop a law on creating an institution to operate commercial accounting of the market, and the requirements to buildings and technologies and equipment. So we know about the development of the roadmap for this initiative, and functionality, normative functionality, regulatory functionality was introduced to have the list of normative equipment, investment credits, and depreciation instruments. The list is quite short, but adopting the document beginning of this year, this list is being updated, and I hope that through development and new equipment coming into the market, new technologies coming into the market, we will also cover them with tax and fiscal support measures. And the last slide, please. The last one with thank you on it. Thank you very much, colleagues. Sorry for being long.